I could smell fresh varnish even before the museum doors whooshed shut behind me, hemming in the humid Manhattan evening. The lobby lights were low, rehearsal mode, the guards called it, so the marble floor drank every glimmer and held it in sullen pools beneath my sneakers. I should have felt triumphant. After all, tomorrow night the Westbrook Museum of Contemporary Art would open its annual Rising Visionaries Gala, and for the first time I, Callista Rowan, had an artist's badge dangling from my neck. Yet my pulse jittered like a faulty projector bulb. Because somewhere inside these walls, behind velvet stanchions and curators' whispers, hung a painting that wore my brushstrokes like living skin. Only the name on its brass placard was not mine. Declan Chadwick's Retrospective had taken over the South Wing. 10 rooms of riotous color, vast canvases bursting with the signature chiaroscuro that critics said married Caravaggio's shadows to Warhol's audacity. For a decade, he had mentored the finest graduate students at Astorley School of the Arts, and I'd been the latest in a long line to orbit his brilliance. Declan commanded critiques the way generals command battalions, slicing through our excuses, branding corrections into our memories so deep that even now, I could still hear his baritone every time I reached for cerulean. "Mean it," he'd thunder. "Paint like every stroke is the last air in your lungs." I had worshipped him for that uncompromising fire. I had loved him too. Not romantically, though rumor mills twirled that narrative with cruel delight, but with the fierce devotion of a craftsperson to the master who first shows her the forge. He had found me in a second-floor studio one October night, wrapped around a ragged canvas like a castaway clinging to flotsam. My scholarship barely covered housing. I slept on a thrift store futon that still smelled of someone else's cigarettes. My hometown of Scranton thought art school an oxymoron. Declan had hovered behind me for almost an hour without speaking. When he finally broke the silence, it was to say my color temperatures were honest, a rare compliment from him, and that he wanted me in his advanced abstract workshop. Those evenings under his mentorship glowed brighter than sodium street lamps outside the studio. He pushed me to experiment with iridescent mineral pigments, the sort so temperamental they could curdle at a humid breath. He scrawled notes in the margins of my sketchbooks with manic loops. "Contrast, Callista," and "harness the ache." He taught me how to build textures that lured viewers close enough to smell the linseed and copper dust. He introduced me to gallerists who pretended not to mind the bleach stains on my jeans, and to collectors whose manicures cost more than my rent. That journey crescendoed in my final thesis, a triptych titled Fugue in Ultramarine. 3 6-foot panels, oceanic and turbulent, shadows clawing at shafts of impossible light. Declan said the work felt like Turner after an electrical fire, a bizarre compliment, but one he delivered with a grin that made me drunk on possibility. The night of the graduate exhibition, I wore the only black dress I owned, and a borrowed pair of heels that blistered my Achilles tendons bloody. I remember my mother texting from Pennsylvania, asking if the school cafeteria would be open late because she might miss dinner on the drive. I remember counting breaths while curators pinned crisp labels beside each student's display. I also remember, with the kind of photographic clarity usually reserved for trauma, the instant I realized my signature was gone. Where my careful C. Rowan should have curled in white enamel, there was nothing but seawall blue, as though my name had never existed. A new signature, slashing silver and unmistakable, flared across the bottom right corner. D. Chadwick. At first, I thought the gallery had mislabeled the piece. Then I saw Declan's name on the placard as well, and nausea rose like solvent fumes. I stood rooted while patrons drifted past, marveling at the master's bold departure. My throat seized around every protest. When I finally confronted him, hours later, in a stairwell that smelled of stale champagne and rubber grips, he regarded me with a baffled patience usually reserved for children who misconstrue game rules. "Callista," he said, placing a hand on my shoulder as if to anchor me against some internal storm, "you painted under my direction, with my materials, in my studio. That makes it a collaboration at best, and at worst, a student exercise. You're not ready to own a masterpiece yet, but the world is ready to see one." I yanked away from his touch so violently my earring snagged his cufflink. Pain lanced my earlobe, a bead of blood bright as cadmium. He didn't even flinch. In the days that followed, I drafted emails I never sent, arguments I never voiced. Administrators sympathized but cited contractual fine print. Works produced with faculty resources could be exhibited under faculty discretion. My classmates whispered apologies, then asked if I'd still share my pigment recipes. By graduation, I'd developed a cyst in my jaw from clenching at night. Yet painting refused to let me drown. I moved into a shoebox apartment above a laundromat in Queens and picked up a barista job, trading latte art for leftover milk I mixed into cheap gouache. On quiet nights, I stretched canvases across radiator pipes, telling myself that someday I'd sign my name so large no one could erase it. Someday arrived in a broken-hearted avalanche 3 years later. I was steaming soy for a financier's cappuccino when a glossy magazine on the condiment bar caught my eye. There, splashed across a 2-page spread under the headline Chadwick in Cobalt, was my triptych, trimmed into a single panoramic image, signature gleaming. The caption praised Declan's daring evolution and hinted at an upcoming retrospective crowning him the, quote, kernel of contemporary color. I couldn't feel the steam scalding my knuckles. Shock insulated me. I only remember the hiss of milk boiling over and my manager's shout. That night, I paced my fire hazard studio until dawn, cataloging every slight, every stolen credit, every time Declan's praise had disguised a leash. By sunrise, resolve consolidated like resin. I would no longer chase validation. I would commandeer it. And if fate insisted I attend his coronation as a nameless spectator, then I'd arrive armed. Not with protest signs or lawsuits I couldn't afford, but with the one weapon he'd taught me to wield flawlessly: curation. The Westbrook Museum announcement landed in my inbox a week later, forwarded by a college friend now interning for their events team. 5 floors of Chadwick's works, from early graphite sketches to recent large-scale abstracts, culminating in the fugue triptych, my triptych, displayed for the first time in the museum's cathedral-like atrium gallery. VIP preview tonight, public gala tomorrow. Beneath the invitation was a single line: "If anyone can hijack this narrative, Rowan, it's you." I requested the evening off work, lied about a family emergency, and borrowed a tailored navy jumpsuit from my roommate's interview closet. I braided my hair into a crown, tucked business cards that read Callista Rowan, independent curator, into a clutch small enough to be mistaken for confidence, and crossed the East River on the F train. Now, as I glide under the vaulted arches of the lobby, each footstep echoes the drumroll of choices, whose reverberations I can't yet measure. I give my name to the registrar, my real name, the one Declan tried to blot out, and she finds it on the list right where my friend promised it would appear. "Welcome, Ms. Rowan," she says, handing me a matte black lanyard reserved for visiting curators. A guard waves me toward the south wing, but I hesitate beside a directory lit like a confession booth. The retrospective sprawls past 10 galleries. The atrium sits at the heart. To reach my stolen triptych, I must navigate corridors lined with canvases that once undercut my confidence. Rooms saturated in the scent of linseed that still conjures Declan's laugh. And throngs of critics who may recognize my brushwork but not my face. I straighten the lanyard until it lies flat against my sternum. My mother used to say you could tell a storm's strength by how the trees prepared, roots bracing before the wind even rose. Tonight, my roots feel anchored in concrete. My storm is overdue. I step onto the threshold of Gallery 1. The room beyond glows midnight blue, walls painted to frame Declan's early graphite illusions. Study sketches of rusted fire escapes, rivers under sodium fog, the anatomy of grieving hands. Patrons in black tie drift between frames, like satellites around a dark star. Whispered praise threads the air. Visionary, disciplined. He translated sorrow to line. I move slowly, absorbing each drawing, searching for hints of the mentor I once admired. The precision is undeniable, but the soul feels embalmed, captured in charcoal grains too fine to breathe. Had he always concealed emptiness under virtuosity, or did theft hollow him by degrees? Halfway down the wall stands a sketch labeled "Study for Fugue, My Lungs Stall." The graphite composition is unmistakably the skeleton of my triptych. Even the angle of the central vortex matches. But I never saw Declan make preparatory drawings. I was possessive of that exploration. My jaw tightens as I notice a faint erasure mark at the lower edge, thin as regret yet visible beneath the display spotlight. I lift the informational audio guide hanging from a kiosk and press the 10 button. Declan's recorded voice spills through the headset. And when my student first attempted this arrangement, I advised a shift toward gravitational symmetry. My thumb jams the stop button. Even disembodied, his voice commandeers credit. From across the room, a woman in horn-rimmed glasses watches me with curious focus. Curator's badge. I straighten, offering a polite nod. She smiles back, half encouragement, half inquiry, and makes a note on her program. I realize with a pocket of warmth that not everyone here is fooled. Gallery 2 looms ahead, doors propped by chrome wedges. Beyond them lies the realm of Declan's red period. I inhale, readying for the visceral assault of cadmium and vermilion. But before I can move, a hand closes over my elbow with startling familiarity. Callista? Declan's voice, unfiltered by headset static, reverberates through the marrow of my name. His grip is gentle but inescapable, steering me half a step out of traffic. He's taller than I remember and leaner, suit draped like a manifesto of success. His eyes, sea glass green, scan my lanyard, widen. Independent curator, he reads aloud, mouth curving. Ambitious as ever. But these corridors are mine tonight. Why hide in the shadows? Come join the vultures. They're waiting to feast. Heat flushes my cheeks. Not embarrassment, but the furnace of stolen years catching alight. I'm exactly where I need to be. He chuckles, low and patronizing. So defensive. You always led with claws when a handshake would do. Tell me, do you still think I wronged you? I draw a breath so deep my ribs creak. Words gather fossils of rage. But before I can exhale them, a spotlight douses the hall in golden glow. A museum aide clears her throat through a handheld mic. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll usher you toward the atrium for Mr. Pretty Chadwick's keynote and the unveiling of his magnum opus. Declan releases my elbow, tilting his head toward the swell of bodies funneling to the grand staircase. Our cue, he says. Try not to get lost in the crowd. After all, every eye will be on me. He strides away, swallowed by chiffon gowns and tuxedo lapels. I watch him vanish, pulse synchronizing with the drumbeat of ascending footsteps. Somewhere above, under cathedral skylight and jealous stars, hangs my triptych, mislabeled as his masterstroke. I square my shoulders and step into the human current, each stride a silent oath. Tonight the art world will scour for revelation, and I intend to supply one. But first, I need to find the curator in horn-rimmed glasses, the one who noticed my pause. Allies often hide in plain sight, and revolutions begin with questions. The staircase yawns like an orchestra pit, awaiting its symphony. I plant a foot on the first marble step, and the lights above the atrium flare to life with blinding brilliance, followed by a collective gasp that vibrates through the banisters. Something has gone terribly wrong overhead. Before I can see what, the crowd surges, and a museum guard releases the velvet rope, allowing no one past until security stabilizes the situation. Gasps become shouts. Cameras rise on outstretched arms. I strain on tiptoe, hearing only fragments. Broken. Canvas slipped. Chadwick is furious. My heart thunders, half terror, half hope, because despite the chaos, one truth sears bright. A mishap this public is exactly the fault line I can exploit. I grip the banister, ready to push against the tide when the rope lifts, ready to ascend into the eye of the storm I've waited too long to summon. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow, I have a special story for you. You. I exhaled the single syllable like a vow, steadying my grip on the marble banister while the crowd thickened around me. Voices rose in dissonant chords, an overture of curiosity, irritation, and thinly veiled panic, each note amplified by the vaulted vestibule leading to the grand staircase. The velvet rope at my waist was all that separated the anxious throng from the scene unfolding above. Guards spoke into radios, terse and urgent, their silhouettes framed against the honeyed glow from the atrium skylight. A woman in a backless emerald gown tapped manicured nails against her clutch. "What exactly happened?" she hissed to no one in particular. "I flew in from Stockholm for this." Beside her, an elderly patron adjusted his opera glasses, aiming them toward the mezzanine, where security clustered. "Canvas slipped, they're saying," he muttered. "Probably an installation error." My skin prickled. An installation error was unlikely in a museum of Westbrook's caliber, unless someone wanted the facade to crack, or worse, wanted the story of the crack to eclipse everything else. I thought of Declan's penchant for spectacle, for controlling the narrative as ruthlessly as he controlled his protégés. Could he have orchestrated a choreographed misfortune to draw attention, sympathy, and headlines? "Callista!" a voice called from behind. I turned to see the horn-rimmed curator weaving through attendees, her program folded like a torpedo. She reached the rope, breathless. Gray-streaked curls framed a face equal parts concern and calculation. "Dr. Evelyn Meyer," she introduced, thrusting a hand across the barrier. "Associate Chief Curator of Modern." Her grip was firm, an anchor amidst the sea of tulle and tuxedos. I recognized the hesitation in Gallery 1. You saw something the rest missed. I glanced over my shoulder. Security directed guests to step back from the staircase mouth. A ripple of annoyance traveled through the line. Among them I spotted Declan, jaw clenched, brow drawn into theatrical devastation. A silver-haired PR handler whispered furiously at his elbow. His gaze swept the gathering, eyes narrowing when they landed on Evelyn and me. "I painted the triptych they're unveiling," I said, voice low. "My signature was removed years ago. If the canvas slipped, my work and any chance of exposing the truth might be ruined." Evelyn's brows lifted. I suspected as much. She tapped the side of her program, revealing scribbled notes. "See Rowan?" Question marks trailed like breadcrumbs. That graphite study in Gallery 1 bore erasure ghosts consistent with name removal. Westbrook values provenance. This discrepancy troubles me. The rope suddenly sagged. A guard with a shaved head stepped aside, addressing us. "Second-level guests may proceed single file. Please move slowly. Maintenance is securing a painting, but the mezzanine is safe." Without waiting for further instruction, Evelyn flashed her curator's badge. "Special access. We need to assess structural risk," she said, tugging me through the gap. The guard, perhaps relieved to offload liability, waved us on. As we ascended, my senses sharpened. The faint scent of varnish thickened into something harsher. Stripped wood mingled with metallic tang, like a splintered stage after a sword fight. Overhead, the glass dome reflected constellations of camera flashes from journalists who had already breached the balcony on the opposite side. Midway up, my heel slipped. Evelyn steadied me with surprising strength. "Breathe," she advised. "Panic wastes oxygen you'll need for clarity." We emerged onto the mezzanine, where the atrium opened in monumental splendor. 3 stories of colonnades circled the vast chamber, crowned by ribbed skylights that turned night into amber noon. At the center, a scaffold of aluminum trusses hovered like a wounded insect. Below it, the largest of the triptych panels, Panel 2, the Vortex, tilted askew in its floating frame, suspended by only one of the 2 stainless steel cables. The other cable, frayed at the ferrule, dangled like a snapped tendon. Technicians in cherry-picker lifts barked instructions. A conservator in latex gloves cranked a manual winch, trying to realign the panel without letting gravity rip the remaining joint. Declan stood 10 feet away, gesturing angrily at a man in a hard hat bearing the Westbrook logo. "I specified duplex crimps, not single sleeves," Declan hissed, voice carrying despite the chaos. His silver cufflinks glinted like warning lights. "Your negligence endangers a multi-million-dollar asset." The rigger opened his mouth to reply, but Declan had already turned toward the nearest journalist, expression shifting into curated sorrow. "I'm devastated," he proclaimed. "Months of preparation and now this tragedy." Cameras shuddered. Reporters thrived on tragedy. Evelyn murmured, Notice the cable ends. Factory cut, not field trimmed. Whoever swapped them did it recently. She lifted a compact camera from her satchel and began taking close-ups from the mezzanine railing. "What are you doing?" I whispered. "Documenting evidence," she replied. "If sabotage or negligence is proven, insurance claims will rely on photographic timestamps." My gaze locked on the tilted panel. Peeking from behind its gilded float mount, at the lower edge that Declan so loved to obscure, was a sliver of turquoise so achingly familiar my throat constricted. It was the hue I had mixed from French ultramarine, phthalo green, and a breath of titanium, a formula Declan once declared impossibly volatile. It glowed like a beacon, and just above it, where fabric had stretched under its own skewed weight, a translucent smear revealed brushstrokes shaped exactly like the flourish of my original signature. Fire roared in my blood. If the panel tilted further, that exposed fragment might tear, taking my evidence with it. Yet the exposure itself was proof. Proof that my mark existed. Proof that Declan had painted over it. A sudden hush fell as the director of the museum, a statuesque woman in slate silk, appeared at the base of the scaffold. Her voice carried through a handheld amplifier. "Ladies and gentlemen, for your safety we will briefly evacuate the atrium, while our technicians secure the suspended artwork." A chorus of groans answered, but she lifted a hand. "Your cooperation ensures the integrity of these priceless pieces." Evelyn lowered her camera. "If they evacuate, we lose immediate access," she said. "We need inside the conservation lab now, before Chadwick spins his narrative." I blinked. "The lab?" "Downstairs, beneath the atrium. They'll take the panel there once they unhook it. We can examine the verso, photograph every layer." She glanced at my lanyard. "Independent curator or not, we'll need rank to persuade the director, but she values calm experts." I inhaled. The part of me that once quivered under faculty disapproval now thrummed with rebellious poise. "Let's make ourselves indispensable." Together we descended a narrow service stairwell that corkscrewed from mezzanine to ground floor. On the last step, we nearly collided with Declan and his PR handler rushing the opposite way. Declan's eyes flicked over Evelyn, then rested on me, darkening. "Ms. Rowan," he said, voice syrupy, "abandoning the viewing party so soon, the press will want statements, primary sources who witnessed the failure." "I prefer facts to spectacle," I replied. "Right now the fact is a compromised suspension system." He smirked. "Always the technician. You never understood that art thrives on spectacle." Evelyn stepped forward, credentials raised. "Dr. Meyer Westbrook. Mr. Chadwick, please allow us space to perform emergency evaluation. Any delay increases risk." Declan's gaze snapped to her badge. He stiffened, lips parting with faint recognition. The PR handler intervened. "Of course," she said, tugging his sleeve. "Mr. Chadwick, the director needs you for a statement upstairs." He allowed himself to be guided away, but his parting glare scorched like turpentine in a paper cut. The conservation labs smelled of cedar stretchers and solvent, dampened with citrus oil, a perfume both clinical and nostalgic. Stainless work tables lined walls painted eggshell white to magnify stray pigment. Racks of drying canvases stood like silent jurors behind tempered glass. A technician named Marco greeted Evelyn with relief. "We're clearing the North Bay. They'll lower panel 2 onto the mobile cradle in 5 minutes. He eyed me. "Additional staff?" "Callista Rowan," Evelyn introduced. "Special consultant on pigment stability. Her expertise applies to this piece." The lie, or half-truth, slipped out with academic crispness. Marco nodded, too harried to question. "Gloves and lab coats." He tossed disposable nitrile packs and knee-length coats to us. As I tugged the coat over my jumpsuit, adrenaline spiked. This was the closest I had come to my own painting since graduation night. My palms sweated. I dried them on the inside of the lab coat before snapping gloves in place. The bay doors hissed open. The mobile cradle rolled in, guided by 2 art handlers steering a padded aluminum sled. Suspended above, still hooked to the winch arm, hung the 200-pound panel. Dull spotlights traced contours of paint so thick it looked carved. I imagined the night I laid those textures down, how the studio air crackled as I flung flecks of iridescent copper onto wet ultramarine, tears blurring my vision after a phone call from home. Mom's biopsy result. Benign. Every emotion trapped in those layers seemed to pulse beneath the gallery glare. Lower 2 inches, steady, watch the right swivel, Marco instructed through a handset. The panel descended with incremental size of hydraulics until rubber feet on the cradle caught its weight. The moment the sling slackened, Evelyn circled, flashlight in hand. She motioned me to the verso. My throat tightened at the sight of the raw linen edges. The original stretcher still bore my scribbled measurements in Sharpie. Declan must have had it remounted for transport, but kept the base structure to preserve authenticity, ironically saving evidence. "See here," Evelyn murmured, pointing to the lower back rail. Beneath a patch of fresh gesso, faint ballpoint scrawl emerged under raking light. "See Rowan 2019. My graduation year." He'd tried to obscure even the hidden signature. I photographed it with my phone, breath hitching. Each flash felt like reclaiming oxygen after a deep-sea dive. One of the art handlers appeared beside us. "We need to remove the float frame to check for warp," she said. "Corporate curator's orders." "Do it," Evelyn agreed. "Be gentle, no vertical stress." They unscrewed the metal spacers, revealing the painting's raw edges. The turquoise swatch I'd spotted from mezzanine peaked at the lower right front. A ragged sliver of cerulean pigment had chipped away from the overpaint, exposing my original brush varnish beneath. Evelyn photographed while I held an LED lamp to maximize contrast. A door clicked. Declan strode in, flanked by the museum director and 2 lawyers in charcoal suits. His gaze landed on me crouched by the canvas, lamp in hand. "What is she doing?" he demanded. The director raised a hand. "Mr. Chadwick, Westbrook protocol allows my staff to document condition issues. Dr. Meyer assures me Ms. Rowan's presence is beneficial." Declan's lips twitched. "Beneficial? She is an ex-student with an axe to grind. Hardly impartial." Evelyn straightened. "Our concern is the artwork's integrity. Preliminary evidence suggests previous interventions not disclosed in your loan documents. That could void insurance coverage." The lawyers exchanged looks. One cleared his throat. "Mr. Chadwick, did you modify the artwork post-catalog?" Declan's jaw flexed. "Minor restoration, routine, nothing significant." He shifted, blocking our line of sight to the director. "These allegations are distractions. We must focus on repairing the suspension." Marco approached with a clipboard. "Preliminary inspection reveals non-standard signatures on the verso and overpaint along the lower quadrant, inconsistent with your declared materials. We'll need a pigment sample." Declan's composure cracked. A hairline fissure. "Absolutely not. Sampling risks irreversible damage." I met the director's eyes. "With a microscalpel, we can lift less than 0.5 millimeter. Imperceptible. If the underlayer contradicts provenance, Westbrook's reputation hangs in balance." The director sighed. "We can't proceed without lender consent." She turned to Declan. "Mr. Chadwick?" His nostrils flared. "Fine. 1 sample. Overseen by my conservation specialist." "There's no time to fly someone in," Evelyn noted. "The gala opens tomorrow." Declan's gaze flicked to me, venomous. "Then we delay the gala. Art deserves patience." The director's expression hardened. "Sponsors and donors arrive at noon. Delay is impossible." She gestured to the lawyers. "Draft an addendum allowing Westbrook conservators to complete the examination. In the meantime, Mr. Chadwick, you may supervise, but you will not impede." Declan's shoulders tensed, but he nodded. I retrieved micro tools from a tray while Evelyn recorded with her camera. Under the stereo microscope, I teased a fleck from the chipped turquoise edge. The uppermost layer was fresh cobalt alkyd, exactly the shade Declan favored. Beneath it shimmered my original blend, the swirling ultramarine barely touched by time. Evelyn projected the magnified cross-section onto a monitor. Even to an untrained eye, the double strata were obvious. 2 paint families divided by hairline cracks of incompatible binders. "It appears the overpaint is younger by several years," she narrated for the record, "likely applied to cover a previous signature." Declan's voice sliced the air. "Many artists revise, Picasso painted over canvases countless times. But Picasso didn't erase someone else's name, I whispered. Silence fell, heavy as a drop cloth. Declan advanced, anger radiating like kiln heat. Your resentment blinds you to reality, Callista. Without my guidance, you'd be pulling espresso shots forever. I felt Marco's and Evelyn's gazes on me, but my focus honed to a single point. Declan's pupils, constricted with fusion of fear and fury. Maybe so, I said. Yet even espresso shots bear the barista's name on the tip jar. The director interjected. We have data to review. Dr. Meyer, Ms. Rowan, prepare a preliminary report within the hour. Mr. Chadwick, join me in my office to discuss risk mitigation. Declan hesitated. For a fleeting moment, his mask slipped, revealing panic at being escorted away from the evidence. Then professionalism reasserted. He followed the director, but not before glancing back, eyes promising retribution. The next 40 minutes passed in whirlwind focus. Evelyn synced the cross-section images with catalog metadata. Marco logged chain of custody forms. I drafted a summary of discrepancies, citing pigment lineage, overpaint binder inconsistencies, and mismatched cable hardware orders traced to Declan's procurement emails, forwarded anonymously to Westbrook's registrar earlier that week, likely by my former classmate. Halfway through, my phone buzzed. The screen displayed an unknown number. I silenced it, but the device vibrated again. Then again, relentless. On the third buzz, I answered, stepping into an alcove of archival shelving. A digitally altered voice crackled. Rowan, you're in over your head. Walk away, or history repeats. My stomach dipped. Who is this? The call ended. A chill rippled beneath my lab coat. I returned to the lab. Evelyn noticed my pallor but said nothing. We uploaded files to a secure server, time-stamped 10:47 p.m. At 11:05, the director returned with the lawyers, without Declan. He claims exhaustion, she said dryly. We'll resume discussions at 8 a.m. She reviewed our report, eyes tracking each highlighted inconsistency. When she finished, she exhaled like someone setting down a heavy crate. If substantiated, this rewrites the retrospective catalog and donor agreements. We must proceed with diligence and absolute confidentiality until morning. She locked the report in a metal case, sealing it with a security sticker bearing her signature. Dr. Meyer, escort Ms. Rowan to guest services and arrange transport. She is under institutional protection until we clarify authorship. Protection? I echoed. Mr. Chadwick's representatives are formidable, she replied. Intimidation would not surprise me. I remembered the altered voice. Maybe intimidation was already underway. Evelyn and I stepped into the corridor. My office has a futon, she offered. Safer than your apartment tonight. Thank you, I said, weary but grateful. We reached the elevator. As the doors slid open, a figure erupted from the stairwell, Declan. His tie hung loose, face flushed. In his left hand gleamed my phone, screen cracked spiderweb thin. You forgot this, he said, voice silky yet brittle. Thought I'd return it before someone misplaces evidence. I glanced at Evelyn. She stiffened, stepping partially in front of me. How did you get my... Unlocked in the lab, he lied smoothly, careless. But then, you always were when ambition clouded judgment. He extended the phone. I reached, but his grip tightened, refusing release. Let go, I said. He leaned closer, whispering so only I could hear. Walk away, Callista, or every gallery door will slam shut. Tonight's chaos will be blamed on you. My pulse roared. I tightened my gloved fingers around the device. You already erased my name once. Try again and I'll paint it across the sky. A muscle twitched in his jaw. He relinquished the phone suddenly, causing me to stumble backward into the elevator car. The doors slid toward closure, severing the space between us. Through the narrowing gap, Declan's eyes locked onto mine, pale, incandescent with thwarted control. Then the doors met, and he vanished. Evelyn hit the lobby button. We'll file a security report, she said. I stared at my cracked phone, notifications blinking, call from unknown, message failed to send, and a final pop-up, a photo icon. Thumb trembling, I opened the image. It was a grainy shot of the stretcher bar I'd signed, time-stamped 2 minutes before the call. Overlaid in red font were 3 words, "She can't win." Air fled my lungs. The elevator descended, each floor number blinking like a countdown. When the doors opened, security waited to escort us, but the corridor behind them was dim, emergency lights casting red petals across polished stone. Somewhere distant, a fire alarm began to wail. I realized with a spike of dread that chaos upstairs had ignited a broader crisis, and our evidence, still locked in the conservation lab above, might already be at risk. We barely reached the rotunda before the sprinklers activated, atomized mist refracting exit signs into fading prisms. Guests poured from side galleries, soaked and cursing. I scanned for Declan. No sign. Evelyn shouted over the din, "The server room! If water breaches, the digital files are gone." I seized her arm. "We can't fight sprinklers. We need redundancy off-site." I raised my phone. "The secure server. Did you sync completely?" Her eyes widened. Uploads stalled at 98% when network traffic spiked. A pang of cold fear shot through me. 98 wasn't enough. I looked toward the exit where paramedics arrived, their flashing strobes painting the air. Somewhere behind us, the report that could vindicate my name teetered between preservation and oblivion. And Declan, armed with desperation, still roamed the museum. The rotunda emergency doors unlatched with hydraulic hiss. Security urged us to move, but I took a step backward instead, facing the smoke-tinged corridor that led deeper into Westbrook's heart. Evelyn's voice cracked. "Callista, what are you doing?" I tightened the lab coat belt, sealing the damp fabric to my ribs, finishing what I started. I plunged into the red-lit hall, sprinting toward the conservation wing, as alarms shrieked like startled birds overhead, every pulse of sirens syncing with the mantra thundering in my skull. "Take back your name. Take back your name. Take back everything." The mantra fractured in my throat as I tore down the smoke-hazed corridor, soles slapping puddles of sprinkler runoff, lab coat whipping behind me like a flag of rebellion. Sirens keened through ventilation ducts, a warbling duet with crackling intercom directives. All visitors evacuate through designated exits. Staff proceed to muster points Alpha and Bravo. But I was no visitor tonight, nor staff bound to muster, and every molecule of me rebelled against the idea of abandoning my proof to water, smoke, or Declan Chadwick's next calculated narrative. My phone vibrated in my pocket, an earthquake contained by denim. I ignored it, vaulting a tipped cleaning cart. Mop handles clattered underfoot, but I kept upright, adrenaline turning every stumble into elastic propulsion. The red strobes painted the hall in stop-motion fury, doorways yawning like mouths, signage warping into crimson hieroglyphs. Somewhere overhead, the atrium skylights must have sealed automatically, trapping pressure, and maybe Declan inside. I rounded a bend and skid to a halt before the double-pane window looking into the conservation lab. The lights inside flickered, emergency mode only. The cradle still cradled my panel, now draped in a mylar sheet. Water beaded on the plastic like sweat on skin. Marco stood by the server cabinet, hands buried in the network console, while a junior tech cranked a floor squeegee against a tide of sprinkler runoff, threatening the equipment racks. I slapped the access panel. Locked. Staff ID required. My visitor badge, useless. "Marco," I hammered the glass. "Open up!" He lifted his head, eyes wide behind fogging goggles. He gestured helplessly. "System lockdown." Panic pawed at my chest. The server cage behind him pulsed green but irregular. Drive bays blinking the Morse code of interrupted uploads. 98% had felt terrifying. Now, with water creeping, even that seemed optimistic. A thunk behind me. I spun to see Evelyn, breath ragged, hair plastered to her forehead. Security's corralling evacuees. I slipped away. She brandished a ring of master keys, each tagged with faded numbers. "Found these in facilities." Her smile was grim triumph. "We're not leaving empty-handed." I seized the keys, scanning for the ward-engraved con lab. Evelyn pressed her palm to the fire-rated door. "Metal's hot," she warned. Sprinkler line must have ruptured above the wiring chase, I said. If the server shorts, then Declan owns tomorrow's headlines. She stepped back, letting me choose the key. My hands shook, but the fifth try clicked. The bolt retracted with a reluctant groan. We pushed in. Warm, humid air blasted our faces, carrying the sharp tang of ozone. Overhead, a section of ceiling tile sagged, saturated. Marco shouted, "Watch your step," as water cascaded from a cracked sprinkler head, pooling around the server case where two maintenance workers wrestled with a wet vac hose. "Upload status?" I asked. "Stalled," Marco replied, shouting over the vacuum roar. "Network switch frying, keep cycling." I knelt next to the rack, wiping droplets from the status panel. The LED flickered amber. Connection lost. Evelyn crouched beside me, retrieving a flash drive from her coat. Off-site backup. Standalone transfer. She thrust it into my hand. "Grab the raw files." "Server's mid-right," Marco warned. "Interrupt wrong segment, you corrupt everything." I chewed my lip. "We isolate just the image directory, 5.6 gigabytes. That might still fit." I navigated the console, breath sinking with each keystroke like I was painting under a deadline. Directory list popped. /evidence/Chadwick_triptych. A fresh cascade of water splashed the power distribution unit. Sparks snapped. The monitor blinked, then steadied on battery backup. "UPS only buys us minutes," Marco barked. I initiated copy. Progress bar crawled. 1%, 2%. My heart hammered double time. "We need to seal that sprinkler," Evelyn yelled to a maintenance worker perched on a ladder. He fumbled with the shut-off collar, wrench slipping on wet brass. I focused on the screen. 9%, 12%, and then the room plunged into darkness. The UPS beeped once before dying, servers croaking off with a death rattle clack. "No!" I slammed the console as if physical force could resurrect circuits. Emergency lights blinked awake, ghostly blue. Marco yanked the flash drive from the powered-down port. "Maybe partial data saved," he offered, but his voice lacked conviction. An explosion of static crackled from the ceiling speaker. "Security breach, south stairwell. Suspect in maintenance uniform heading toward conservation wing." The voice was the director's, taut with alarm. We exchanged glances. "Declan." Evelyn grabbed my elbow. "We have enough. Physical painting, partial data, photographs. We must secure them off-site." She pointed to the cradle. "Panel first." Marco and the junior tech lashed straps across the mylar-shrouded canvas, then slid a hover dolly beneath the cradle base. An anti-gravity platform designed for artifact transport. With the flip of a switch, electromagnetic pads hummed, lifting the weight by a frictionless hair. "North exit loading dock," Marco said. "Cargo lifts that way." He nodded to a corridor branching left. I positioned behind the dolly, pushing. It glided smoothly, but the floor slickness turned each step into ice skating. Evelyn jogged ahead to swipe the card reader with her master keycard. The door opened onto a dim passage flanked by crates. Fluorescent emergency strobes cut the hallway into shards of light and dark, illuminating dust motes and anxious silhouettes of sculpture stands. I guided the hover dolly, feeling the vibrations of its engine resonate through my arms. Halfway down, a figure stepped from behind a crate. Maintenance coveralls, cap pulled low. He raised both gloved hands. "Easy." The accent was unmistakable despite the rough whisper. Declan's polished vowels disguised with gravel. "That's a masterpiece you're mishandling." I halted, heart thudding. Evelyn edged beside me. "Step aside, Mr. Chadwick." He removed the cap with theatrical flourish. Sweat darkened his hairline. A small crowbar gleamed in his right hand. "Return the painting. The museum's systems are compromised. I will ensure its safety and restore order." He advanced one step, crowbar tapping crate wood. I planted my feet. "Its safety? You sabotaged the suspension." My words tasted of copper fury. His gaze flicked to the hover dolly. "I orchestrated nothing, but I admit, serendipity favors the bold." His grin chilled me. Imagine the sympathy when my magnum opus is destroyed by institutional negligence, and the insurance payout. He twirled the crowbar like a maestro's baton. but only if the piece is unsalvageable. Suppose not even ashes remain. He gestured to the sprinklers dripping steadily. Water alone may not suffice. Fire cleanses thoroughly. Evelyn's voice sliced through, steel taut. You'd torch a museum collection? Declan shrugged. Progress demands sacrifice. He thrust the crowbar forward, aiming for the dolly's control panel. I shoved the dolly sideways, intercepting the blow with the cradle's steel frame. The clang reverberated. Declan cursed, staggering. Marco and the tech dashed from behind, wielding fire extinguishers like clubs. Declan retreated, raising the crowbar defensively. Foam surged as Marco squeezed a blast, blinding white cloud engulfing Declan. He coughed, swung wildly, struck a crate that toppled, spilling bronze castings across the floor with thunderous clamor. Go! Evelyn shouted. I surged forward, steering the dolly around debris. A bronze bust rolled underfoot. I leaped it, nearly losing balance. Declan emerged from foam, eyes blazing, started after us. Evelyn yanked a stand, toppling it into his path. He stumbled, cursing. The corridor bent. We burst into the freight vestibule where the cargo lift awaited, gate ajar. The dock lights flickered, one strobing purple. Marco sprinted to the control panel, jabbing the down arrow. The lift groaned, platform descending to basement level. We rolled aboard before the gate clanged shut. I exhaled ragged. My arms quivered from exertion, yet still hugged the dolly handle like a lifeline. Evelyn slumped against the cage mesh, breathing in sharp, controlled gasps. The freight elevator rattled lower, deeper into Westbrook's underbelly. Loading dock leads to 6th Street, Marco said, voice echoing. From there, truck bay. The tech, whose name tag read Sandra, clutched her tablet. I texted the director. Police inbound. The elevator jarred to a stop. Gate rose. A cavernous sublevel stretched ahead, lined with pallets, forklifts, and shadowed alcoves. The dock door at the far end stood sealed. Evelyn scanned the darkness. Keep moving. We pushed. The hover dolly hummed over concrete. Each echoing footstep magnified the basement's emptiness. I sensed more than saw movement among the pallets, shifting silhouette, fleeting. Declan couldn't have beaten us down unless a parallel stair-shaft existed, but paranoia frayed logic. Sandra keyed the dock control. Steel shutters groaned upward, revealing night air and a drizzle-slick alley where an idling museum van waited, exhaust curling silver in floodlight. A driver stepped out, startled. Ma'am, what's... A crash behind. We spun. Declan barreled from between crates, face smeared with extinguisher foam, eyes feral. He wielded a fire axe now, stolen from the stairwell box. He slashed downward at the dolly's power pack. Sparks erupted. The hover disc sputtered. I screamed. Marco lunged, grabbing the axe handle. Declan elbowed him, sending him reeling. Evelyn hurled a loose pallet board, missed by inches. Sandra dialed 911, voice trembling. The dolly's hum faltered, weight settling. The cradle sagged, one corner scraping concrete. You will not steal my legacy, Declan roared, swinging again. Instinct lit my nerves. I shoved between him and the canvas, arms outstretched. The axe arced down, blade glinting, but halted inches from my shoulder. Declan's breath scorched my face, eyes conflicted, pride grappling with something like remorse. Move, he rasped. No. My voice shocked even me, steady iron. You can destroy the painting, but you'll have to destroy me first, and the whole world will know why. His grip trembled. He glanced at the doorway. Sirens approached, red-blue strobe washing alley bricks. Footfalls thundered. 2 uniformed officers burst in, weapons drawn. Drop the axe! Hands up! Declan wavered. Then slowly he opened his fingers. The axe clattered, spinning across concrete. He raised his hands, palms outward, expression sliding into martyrdom. This is a misunderstanding, he began, but cuffs clicked around his wrists before the sentence finished. I sagged, knees slackening. Marco steadied me. Officers escorted Declan to the alley where patrol cars screeched curbside. Dawn found us in the director's conference suite, An ivory room overlooking Central Park. The sprinkler incident had forced early closure. Press vans vultured outside, their satellite dishes serried like spears at a fortress wall. Evelyn, Marco, Sandra, and I huddled around a towel-wrapped server tower unplugged hours earlier. A forensic IT specialist from the museum's insurer extracted drives with surgical precision while we sipped blistering coffee. The director paced. Mr. Chadwick is in custody pending arraignment for attempted arson and assault. His legal team will mount a defense. She turned to me. Authorship dispute remains unresolved until Provenance Board convenes. But preliminary findings point heavily in your favor, Ms. Rowan. Her tone softened. We intend to list you as co-artist in tomorrow's emergency press release, subject to verification. She paused. Would you accept curator credit for the reopened retrospective? My heart stuttered. The offer dangled like a sunrise beyond turbulent seas. On one condition, I said, the triptych bears my full signature on the placards, and the original brush flourish remains exposed, no more concealment. She inclined her head, agreed. Outside, skyline clouds milked gold from the rising sun. I pressed my forehead to the glass, breathing condensation halos. 3 years ago, I had staggered out of this city convinced I was invisible. Now, the art world bristled outside, hungry for statement. But victory's aftertaste held bitters. Declan sat in a holding cell, undone by ego and greed, but also by a system that hailed him until he believed his myth could devour anyone. I wondered whether he now saw the ghost of my erased signature on every blank wall. Evelyn approached, placing a binder on the table, a fresh printout, curatorial proposal, revised retrospective credit line. We reopen in 72 hours, she said. Your story will headline catalog essays. Her eyes shone with something between pride and relief. Are you ready to guide the narrative? I exhaled, feeling the marrow settle after nights of relentless momentum. Yes, I said, steady, but let's do more than correct the past. Let's use this show to spotlight every emerging artist whose signature was ever eclipsed by someone louder. I touched the window glass. A gallery within the retrospective, call it the unseen. Inspiration flared. We'll feature works that mentors claimed, studios shelved, or institutions undervalued. Put each rightful name in lights. Evelyn's smile widened. I'll draft the wall text tonight. She extended her hand. Partner? I clasped it. Partner. A chime from my phone. Unknown number. I braced, but the message displayed only a news alert. Chadwick retrospective shuddered. Insider scoop at noon. The world already spun the story. I silenced notifications, turning to the window again where sunlight edged the horizon, slicing through morning haze like fresh pigment across raw canvas. Somewhere below, reporters prepared their lenses. Somewhere in Pennsylvania, my mother likely brewed coffee, unaware her daughter's name would soon grace art feeds across the hemisphere. A knock at the suite door. The director entered, cheeks flushed. Callista, press conference in 30. You'll speak alongside Dr. Meyer. She handed me a lanyard, Westbrook Museum, guest curator. I fastened it, heartbeat steady, as metronome ticks in a studio before creation. The director lingered. One more thing. She opened a velvet box, revealing a brass plaque engraved, Fugue in Ultramarine, 2021, oil, and mixed media on linen, Callista Rowan. She placed it in my hands. The installers will mount it before cameras arrive. Emotion surged, a wave cresting after years of undertow. My vision blurred, but I blinked clarity into focus. Thank you. 2 words insufficient but anchoring. As the director left, Evelyn squeezed my arm. We still need a show poster. She raised her brow. Care to choose the image? I glanced at the binder. Top sheet showcased the freshly photographed panel, my brushstrokes luminous beneath restored varnish. The once absent signature now glowed in silver leaf, a serpentine flourish that commanded the eye. That one, I said. We exited the suite, heading for the auditorium. As we turned a corner, a maintenance crew removed soaked carpets, stripping corridor floors to polished stone. I noticed faint footprints, foam residue shaped like Declan's size 11s, stretching toward a service exit. A janitor scrubbed them methodically, each swipe erasing the last traces of an empire built on stolen credit. But I didn't need erasure to move forward. I needed illumination. And illumination waited beyond the auditorium doors, where cameras clicked and lights burned bright as newborn constellations. The auditorium bristled with journalists, their collective expectancy thicker than spotlight heat, microphones clustered on a podium. I stepped behind it, Evelyn to my left, the director to my right. Flashbulbs ignited as the director cleared her throat. "We appreciate your flexibility. Tonight, we address the incident involving the suspension failure of Panel 2 and ongoing authorship review." She gestured toward me. "Callista Rowan, original artist of Fugue in Ultramarine, will speak now." My fingers brushed the brass plaque in my pocket, its engraved ridges grounding me. I leaned into the mic. "Good morning." The timbre of my voice surprised me, resonant, calm, camera's word. Years ago, I stood anonymous in a gallery watching patrons admire my work, unaware the name beside it was not mine. I paused, letting silence settle like gesso primer. Today, I reclaim that name, not out of vengeance, but to affirm every artist's right to ownership. Art is dialogue, between pigment and light, creator and viewer, truth and time. When that dialogue is hijacked, we all lose narrative fidelity. I inhaled. The Westbrook Museum has chosen transparency, courage, and integrity. I am honored to curate the revised retrospective, now titled Reclaimed Visions, opening in 3 days. It will feature not only my triptych, duly attributed, but also works by emerging voices once marginalized. I met the sea of lenses. I invite you to witness art's resilience. Applause followed, muted at first, then swelling as awareness rippled. Questions volleyed. How will you ensure authenticity going forward? Will Chadwick face civil action? What message do you have for students under oppressive mentors? I answered with candor, weaving each response into a tapestry of empowerment. Somewhere in the back rows, a young woman clutched a notepad, tears shimmering. Maybe a student whose sketchbook bore corrective red marks too deep. I spoke to her, to all of them. When the session adjourned, journalists surged. PR staff guided me through a side door into a corridor, buzzing with event planners prepping new banners. One unfurled across a portable truss. Reclaimed Visions, curated by Callista Rowan. My chest tightened, not with doubt, but with awe. 6 hours later, after interviews, catalog proofing, and a brief call to Mom, who cried joyful disbelief, I found myself alone in Gallery 1. The graphite sketches remained, but new labels lay atop carded-in lecterns, awaiting installation. I traced a finger over the placeholder card reading Study for Fugue, Callista Rowan. My reflection in the glass, superimposed over the charcoal lines, melding past and present. Footsteps approached, soft, hesitant. I turned. Declan's lawyer stood there, slim briefcase in hand. "Ms. Rowan," he greeted, voice smooth as varnish. "Mr. Chadwick wishes to negotiate. He'll cede credit for the triptych and make a public apology in exchange for reduced sentences and royalties from future exhibits." "Royalties split?" My heartbeat slowed, measured. "He stole years," I said. "Call that interest." I folded the placeholder card, slid it into my pocket. "Tell him the conversation starts with full confession under oath, no royalties. Then we can discuss leniency." The lawyer's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "I'll relay." He hesitated. "You are merciful, Ms. Rowan." "I'm just precise." I watched him leave. Precision. Declan once praised it in my strokes while plotting erasure. Now it sharpened justice. Midnight. The museum slept, skeleton crew patrolling silenced corridors. I couldn't sleep, so I sat cross-legged before the remounted triptych in the atrium. Emergency restoration complete. LED work lights bathed the linen, revealing micro-craquelure-like starfields. My signature shimmered faintly above the swirl of ultramarine, a phoenix feather unfurling. I closed my eyes. The sprinklers no longer hissed. They had been repaired, the cables now doubled, redundancies in place. Yet memory replayed water's rush, Declan's roar, siren's wail, then transmuted into stillness, a vast hush within which paint breathed again. Footsteps again. Evelyn. She settled beside me, 2 paper cups steaming. Chamomile, you need rest. She passed a cup. Soon, I sipped. The tea tasted of quiet meadows. Do you think the art world forgives? It remembers, she answered. And remembrance, when honest, is a form of forgiveness. It keeps lessons alive. We sat in silence until automatic lights dimmed. I rose, stretching. As I turned to leave, Evelyn caught my sleeve. Press lined up for preview tomorrow. It's your first curation. How do you want them to experience this hall? I gazed at the triptych. In darkness first, I said. Then bring lights up slowly to mimic dawn at sea. Let the colors emerge. Make them feel discovery, the moment truth surfaces. I smiled. And keep the placards spotlighted from the start. Anchor them in authorship before they see the art. Evelyn's eyes glimmered. Consider it done. I walked home through pre-dawn streets, city washed fresh by overnight rain. Neon signs blinked weary farewell to clubgoers, while bakery scents summoned sunrise. I crossed a puddle reflecting skyscraper constellations and paused. My reflection stared back. Lab coat swapped for leather jacket, paint-speckled sneakers trading places with borrowed heels. A timeline condensed into a single silhouette, the barista, the student, the curator. Phone buzz. A text from unknown, a real master credits their students. It's about time. Beneath, a link to an art blogger's article praising the museum's transparency. I exhaled a laugh, support arriving from unlikely corners. Another buzz. Mom. Heritage Society invited the family to see your show. She appended 3 heart emojis and a paint palette. I typed back. Can't wait to see you. Save your ticket stub. Worth millions one day. Winking face. Laughter bubbled, easing tired muscles. I reached my apartment, climbed narrow stairs to the unit above the laundromat. Inside, canvases leaned like sentries. I flicked on a single bulb. The nearest blank linen, stretched days ago, waited. I set down my bag, stripped off jacket, and took up a palette knife. Sleep could wait. Creation couldn't. I mixed fresh ultramarine and titanium, the hue trembling like first light. My wrist swept broad arcs, laying base shapes of a new story, not a fugue but an overture. Knuckles rapped my door. I startled, brush dripping. Through the peephole I saw a hooded figure, too short for Declan. Heart stuttered. Voice, muffled. Callista? It's Sandra. Police liaison wants your statement expanded. She waved her ID. Relief exhaled. I unlocked the door. But before I could open, my phone buzzed again, same unknown number. This time, did you really think it was over? Adrenaline surged anew, the peephole view distorted. Sandra glanced behind her nervously. Footsteps sounded in the stairwell, heavy, rapid. I swallowed. Just a second. I backed away, heart pounding. The canvas behind me glowed under the bulb, wet paint glistening like spilled secrets. Asterisk. Cliffhanger beats someone else, maybe an accomplice of Declan, threatening Callista in her apartment. I froze, heart bucking like a startled mare. The peephole lens warped the corridor. Sandra's outline clear, yet shadows writhed behind her. A second set of feet slipping out of view just as I stepped back. The text message glared on my cracked screen. Did you really think it was over? I swallowed. My apartment above the laundromat suddenly felt small, paint-scented air turning acrid with threat. Fresh ultramarine glistened on the canvas behind me, half-formed arcs reflecting the single bulb's glare. My pulse drummed in my ears. Callista? Sandra called, voice edged with urgency. Police liaisons waiting downstairs. They need you to clarify the timeline. A floorboard creaked under weight, not hers. She spun. I saw the blur through the peephole as something yanked her shoulder. She gasped. A muffled sound cut short. A hand, gloved and burly, clamped over her mouth, dragging her out of frame. Instinct kicked harder than fear. I locked the deadbolt, threw the chain. My fingers flew across the keypad to dial 911, but paused. If I stayed caged, I'd corner myself. The only exit beside the front door was the fire escape outside the kitchen window. Another text pinged. Open up OR, she pays. Hands shaking, I typed back, what do you want? 3 dots blinked, then, the drive. 30 seconds. I glanced at the flash drive on my desk, the partial backup from Westbrook. Data incomplete, but damning. They thought I had the full set. Maybe that leverage kept Sandra alive. A thud hit the door. Chain rattled. "Callista!" Sandra's voice strained, as if through duct tape. "Don't!" A grunt, then silence. I bolted to the kitchen, pocketing the drive. I kicked the radiator beneath the window, knocking free the piece of plywood I used as makeshift drying rack. Canvases slumped. I yanked up the sash. Humid July air poured in. The metal grating of the fire escape glimmered wet from earlier rain. Footsteps pounded the hallway outside. Another blow, wood splintering. I heard my landlord yell from below, "Hey, what the hell?" A curse answered, followed by a shotgun cock clack that stilled all voices. I swung onto the fire escape, gripping the slick rail. The alley 3 stories down yawned dark, dumpsters overflowing with laundry lint and cardboard. I shoved the window down behind me, hoping the door barricade would buy seconds. Sirens approached in the distance. Doppler whine. Maybe someone downstairs called them. I hurried downward, careful on rusted steps. Halfway to the second-floor landing, a silhouette lunged through a window on the opposite fire escape. Broad shoulders, cap low. Light glinted off something metallic tucked in his waistband. He saw me. "Stop," his voice rough, unfamiliar. "Not Declan. Someone hired." I bolted, skipping steps. My shoes slipped. I slammed a shin but kept moving. The figure vaulted rails, descending faster. At ground level, I leaped onto a dumpster lid, then the alley floor. My ankle twinged but held. I sprinted toward the streetlights, flash drive clenched. Garbage bags burst underfoot, releasing detergent-soaked steam. He hit pavement behind me, boots pounding. Another silhouette emerged at the alley mouth, blocking exit. 2 of them. Breath burning, I scanned for options. A side door into the laundromat, propped for ventilation. I veered, slammed shoulder first through. Motor hum from industrial dryers drowned my entry. I dodged wheeled laundry carts, weaving between machines. Customers' bags lay stacked like soft barricades. The first thug burst in, scanning rows. I crouched behind a washer bank, edges resonating with spin cycles. Above, fluorescent tubes flickered. My phone buzzed. Unknown again. I muted it. A dryer timer dinged. The thug flinched. He advanced, crowbar in hand. I crawled, keeping washers between us, heading for the rear service corridor. The second thug entered the front, calling, "She's in here." My exit was a loading hatch, padlocked. I tugged. No luck. Footsteps closing. I spotted a pair of metal shears on a folding table, likely used for fabric tags. I snatched them, jammed them into the padlock clasp, twisted with all the fury of 3 stolen years. Metal squealed, half-snapped. The crowbar clanged against a washer. He was 2 rows over. I wedged the shears deeper. Another squeal, then the clasp snapped. I yanked the hatch, slipped into a humid boiler nook between laundromat and neighboring deli. Unlit, the space reeked of gas and stale fryer oil. A maintenance ladder bolted to the wall led to rooftop ducting. I climbed, ribs protesting. Below, the hatch banged open. Flashlight beams slashed darkness. I reached the roof, panting. City skyline loomed, neon and cloud glow. Sirens louder now. Police near. I crouched behind an HVAC unit, pulse hammering like timpani. My phone buzzed again, insistent. I glanced. New text, same number, wrong move. A selfie loaded, Sandra bound to a radiator, tear tracks shining. Time stamped 2 minutes ago. Rage eclipsed fear. They'd split up. One to chase me, another to secure Sandra. She must have been taken to another location. My own hallway SOP closet, perhaps. If police arrived, they'd find broken door and maybe Sandra missing. I typed proofs online, hurt her and the world sees it. ... Then, send link. I needed bluff time, I texted. Need her voice live first. No answer. Police cruisers screeched onto the avenue. Red-blue strobes strobed walls. Officers flooded the alley, guns raised. I shouted, "Up here!" waving. One spotted me, radioing. Within minutes, I was escorted downstairs. Inside my apartment hallway, splintered doorframe testified to the break-in, but Sandra was gone. Only her purse and ID left strewn. Crime scene ribbons streamed from each nail slit. Detectives questioned me. I recounted chase details. They noted size, attire. One detective, Singh, frowned at the text thread. Professional intimidation, she said. Possibly hired muscle. Any enemies? Declan Chadwick. He's in custody. People like him have resources, Singh replied. She set an emergency ping on the number, though it was spoofed. Likely burner phones. We'll issue an alert for Sandra Reyes. I hugged my arms, paint-stained cuffs brushing cheeks. They want this. I held up the flash drive. Singh bagged it for prints, but returned a forensic clone to me. Back up that online tonight, she urged. Secure cloud. The landlord hovered, pale. He asked about repairs. Police tape barred entrance. Homeless for the night again. Near dawn, I sat in an unmarked cruiser outside the precinct. Detective Singh retrieving paperwork. City lights bleached to gray. I stared at station bricks, numbness creeping where adrenaline ebbed. Phone pinged. Evelyn, you safe? Reporters everywhere. I typed a brief summary. She replied, come to my place. Safe building, doorman, show opens in 48 HR. I agreed. A uniformed officer drove me across the park to Evelyn's Upper West Side brownstone. Morning joggers hugged sidewalks, unaware of night terrors. Evelyn met me in a silk robe, ushering me into a book-lined parlor smelling of bergamot and old paper. She pressed a mug of honey tea into my hands, guided me to a sofa piled with quilts. Sleep, she said. I lay down, closing eyes heavy with unshed tears. Dream fragments flickered. Paint swirling into storm. Declan's crowbar. Sandra's muffled voice. Somewhere, a metronome ticked. The grandfather clock in Evelyn's hall. Its steady beat lulled memory into darkness. I woke mid-afternoon to piano notes drifting from another room. Debussy's La Fille aux cheveux de lin, delicate. I padded toward the sound, finding Evelyn's teenage niece, Clara, practicing. She smiled shyly. Aunt Evie said not to wake you. I thanked her, wandered to the kitchen where Evelyn typed at her laptop. Westbrook's installing new security, she said. Director hired off-duty NYPD for the gala. I relayed Sandra's abduction. Evelyn paled. We must tell the director. She can request video from museum exits to trace the accomplices. We composed an email flagged urgent. Meanwhile, I uploaded the forensic clone to an encrypted cloud vault, sharing keys with Detective Singh and Evelyn. Evening news blared on TV. In developing scandal, acclaimed painter Declan Chadwick arraigned today. Sources say evidence suggests forged attribution. Clips of him in handcuffs played, attorneys shielding cameras. Panel of pundits debated mentor-student power imbalance. My name scrolled across ticker tape. Callista Rowan to curate reclaimed visions. A surge of vindication tempered by worry for Sandra. Night again. Evelyn insisted I stay. Police posted a car outside. Still, I couldn't rest. I wandered the parlor, fingers skimming spines of monographs. O'Keeffe, Basquiat, Artemisia Gentileschi. Stories of artists wronged, later exalted. Clara peeked in, holding a sketchbook. Aunt Evie says you're a famous painter, she said. I smiled wearily. Infamous, maybe. She hesitated, then opened the book. Pencil portraits, promising talent. My art teacher says portraits aren't real art. He ignores my work. Should I give up? Emotion tightened my throat. I knelt. Never let someone erase your lines. They're yours. I handed her my graphite mechanical pencil from purse, engraved with initials CR. She beamed. Evelyn watched from doorway, eyes bright. Later, Evelyn briefed me on exhibit logistics. Lighting tests at dawn, press preview tomorrow evening, gala the next night. I need you on site, she said. The show must carry your imprint. Fear flickered. Sandra still missing, threats ongoing, but hiding ceded power. I'll be there, I said. The next morning, we arrived at Westbrook under tight security. Uniformed officers scanned IDs, metal detectors flanked staff entrance. Inside, the atrium thrummed with activity. Riggers hoisting new banners, electricians focusing spots. The triptych stood glorious, protective acrylic shield newly installed. My signature shimmered beneath. I touched the case lightly, cold, solid. The director approached, relief visible. "You're safe," she said. "We've tightened protocols. NYPD task force will monitor every doorway." She handed me a badge. Curator, all access. We toured galleries. The unseen wing took shape. Student works reclaimed from overshadowed mentors. Contractual releases obtained overnight. Seeing my curation vision manifest offset fatigue. Midday, Detective Singh arrived with CCTV stills from my building. She showed me grainy image. One assailant identified as Victor Russo, private security contractor previously employed by Chadwick's PR firm. "We have an address," she said. "SWAT prepping warrant." Hope sparked. "And Sandra?" Singh's eyes softened. "No sign yet, but this lead is strong." Late afternoon, I rehearsed talk for press preview. Lights dimmed just right. Dawn simulation executed by lighting crew. Satisfaction curled in my chest. Abruptly, my phone buzzed. Unknown. Image loaded. Sandra blindfolded. Today's newspaper held to her chest. July 31st. Caption: Curator dies. She lives. Follow instructions, 9 p.m. Blood drained from my face. It was 5:27. The preview opened at 7, ended by 9. Evelyn noticed my pallor. I showed her. She grabbed my arm. "We need Singh." Singh took the phone, screenshotting. "They'll try something at the museum. Public spectacle." She radioed units. Ordered lockdown protocols for 8:45. My knees trembled but resolve hardened. I would not cancel preview. Seating ground only emboldened them. "We continue," I said, but with eyes open. 7 p.m. gallery lights dimmed. Journalists gathered. I stepped to podium, delivered introduction. Cameras flashed. Every shadow seemed to twitch, but security perimeters bristled with vigilance. I guided guests through Gallery 1, explaining graphite origins. 8:15. We entered the unseen wing. I spoke of each artist's suppression and reclamation. Applause warm yet anxious. 8:40. Final stop. The triptych under dawn lights. I pressed the control. Lights rose. Blue sweeping across linen. Gasps swelled. Beauty transcended tension. I felt tears prick. Then, a snap. Lights blinked off, plunging atrium in partial darkness. Emergency spots flickered red. Murmurs escalated. PA crackled. "Code gray. All guests remain calm." Security locked doors. Singh materialized beside me, hand on holster. "Power line severed near service corridor," she murmured. "We're sweeping." My phone vibrated with new text. "Time's up. Check under signature." Before anyone could stop me, I bolted to the triptych, shining phone flashlight. Beneath my silver flourish, a tiny puncture in acrylic revealed a cavity drilled through case and frame edge. Inside glinted a cylinder, metal, blinking red. "Bomb!" I yelled. Chaos erupted. Security ushered guests back. Singh radioed bomb squad already on site. I knelt, heart racing. The cylinder's timer read 013, 012. Too fast. Bomb squad wouldn't reach in time. Singh lunged, but I shouted, "It's wired to frame, moving triptych triggers." Evelyn's voice behind me. Panel cradle wheels. The hover dolly's replacement cradle sat nearby, foam padding. Singh cursed. "No time." Timer, 008. I grabbed the tripod spotlight stand, swung its metal shaft like baseball bat, shattering acrylic above the device. Shards rained. I plunged hand in, ignoring glass bite, yanked the cylinder free. Singh shouted, "Throw it!" 005. I hurled it toward the atrium fountain 10 yards away, water pool for sculpture displays. Cylinder arced in slow motion, splashed. A muted boom reverberated underwater, geysering spray. Shockwave rippled marble floor. Spray drenched guests but no casualties. Silence hovered, then shouts, cries. Triptych remained intact, though acrylic skeletal. My hand bled, glass embedded. Singh escorted me aside as paramedics rushed. Director, drenched, clutched my shoulders. You saved lives. But my mind flicked to Sandra. Timer message, perhaps trigger for bomb. If defused, would she be spared? Phone buzzed. New text. Nice save. Next will be louder. My vision darkened at edges. Paramedic pressed gauze. I gripped phone, teeth gritting. This wouldn't end until we uprooted Mastermind. Sirens wailed outside as bomb squad secured fountain. Guests evacuated. News helicopters buzzed overhead. Midnight. Museum sealed under crime scene order. I sat in infirmary room, stitches in palm. Evelyn beside me, exhaustion etched. Director paced, on call with trustees. Singh entered, expression grave yet determined. SWAT raided Russo's warehouse, found Sandra alive, bound but unharmed. Relief detonated in my chest. Russo in custody, she continued, but he claims another employer, the art investment firm, Celestin Holdings. They financed Chadwick's last tour. Evelyn frowned. Celestin's CEO is Laird Everett, major donor here. Director paled. Everett pledged 7 figures to this retrospective. Singh nodded. Russo got orders tonight via burner that traces to Everett's yacht network router. My pulse thudded. He stands to lose millions if Chadwick's work devalues. Singh's eyes hardened. And he just attempted mass casualty to protect that investment. Warrants processing. Thunder rolled outside. Summer storm brewing. Director turned to me. We can't reopen under threat. I stood despite throbbing hand. We must, but not here. Ideas sparked. Move the show to Central Park Bandshell. Open-air rescue gala. Public, transparent, impossible to sabotage quietly. Evelyn's eyebrows lifted. Logistics insane, but donors love spectacle. Director considered, then nodded slowly. A defiant pivot. Aide poked head in. Media outside. Director sighed. They smell blood. We counter with resolve. She gestured to me. You ready? I inhaled, tasting copper and adrenaline. Always. We stepped toward press room. As doors swung open, flashbulbs stung. Reporters shouted, Bomb attempt? Chadwick accomplices? Will the show survive? I gripped microphone with stitched hand, bandage stark under lights. Art resists violence, I began. We will not cower. Tomorrow at dusk, reclaimed visions will unfold under the open sky, a testament that truth cannot be caged. I locked eyes with cameras. Join us in Central Park. Bring light. Reporters erupted, streaming rush of queries. I spotted one man in back, suit slick with rain, cell phone raised. He smirked, recognizable from investor galas. Laird Everett. Our gazes clashed. Wealth's arrogance versus a reclaimed name's fire. He mouthed something I couldn't hear but felt. This isn't over. Security moved in, but Everett blended into crush, disappearing. I stepped from podium, stomach nodding. Outside, thunder rumbled, lightning flashing white over skyline, unfolding stage lights for tomorrow's showdown. 3 a.m. Evelyn's brownstone guest room. I sat at desk, palm throbbing. On paper, I sketched Central Park layout. Stage, triptych display, crowd zones, security perimeters. Strategy spilled in graphite. Phone buzzed. Message from Sandra. Thank you. Safe at hospital. Tears pricked. I replied heart emoji and rest. See you tomorrow. Another buzz. From unknown, new number. Dawn will drown you. I blocked it, but dread seeped. I studied sketch. Weak points marked. Must anticipate Everett's next move. Fatigue weighed, but mind raced. I opened laptop, firing emails. Rental of floodlights. Portable bulletproof glass. Drone surveillance. Westbrook's operations responded lightning fast. Fear breeds efficiency. At last, dawn's pale wash crept across manuscript pages. Birdsong trickled through shutters. I leaned back, spine aching, but heart steadfast. Tomorrow's dusk would test everything. My name, my courage, the art world's conscience. Everett's empire thrived in shadow. We'd drag it into open air. I rose, stretching. In the mirror, dark circles ringed my eyes, but flame burned behind them. A storm lamp in hurricane. I whispered to my reflection, "Let them come." Thunder answered, distant but marching closer. And somewhere across the city, Everett surely plotted, but the sky belonged to everyone, and tomorrow I'd paint my signature across it in light. When dawn finally bled across Manhattan, it arrived on a hush too fragile for a city like ours. Yet in that hush, the next movement of battle began. I stood at the edge of Central Park bandshell, breath fogging in the cool August morning, and watched riggers pivot aluminum trusses into place like the bones of some prehistoric bird. Every clang echoed off the Bethesda Terrace colonnades and vanished into the reservoir mist. Somewhere behind me, the triptych rested inside a climate-controlled truck, cocooned in Kevlar crates, waiting for its second rebirth, this time beneath the open sky. Evelyn arrived just after 6, coffee in hand, blueprints rolled under her arm. She wore a hard hat over silver-streaked curls, her usual museum elegance swapped for a reflective vest that read Curatorial Operations. She tossed me a matching vest. "Put armor on your vision," she quipped. I slipped it over yesterday's black tee, stitches in my palm tugging. Nearby, Detective Singh conferred with the NYPD counter-terror unit. An officer walked bomb-sniffing dogs through rows of rented folding chairs. Drones buzzed overhead, our own this time, mapping aerial perimeters. Evelyn unrolled schematics across a portable stage box. She pointed. Triptych centered behind bulletproof acrylic, angled 15 degrees for dawn simulation. VIP row here. She tapped a block of seats. Mayor confirmed attendance. Media pens flanking. Concert lighting from these towers. And she flicked a red marker, drawing concentric rings around the stage. Police cordon radius Delta R every 20 yards. I traced the rings, feeling both containment and liberation. A public show meant Everett's shadows had nowhere to hide. Still, he'd threatened a louder strike. Would he risk collateral damage in daylight? I thought of Everett's yacht router, of wealth wired to greed, and decided yes, if desperation demanded. Generator trucks? I asked. Routed through redundant UPS, Evelyn assured. Even if main power cuts, lights stay. Singh approached, sunglasses mirroring rising sun. Russo's phone logs show message drafts unsent. Everett deleted final orders remotely. But we know his alias, Peregrine. All burner phones ping same cell tower cluster near Pier 59. Harbor Patrol monitoring. You expect him to strike from water? Evelyn asked. Maybe, Singh said. Line of sight to Park's western edge. She studied our stage layout. Keep backup plan for mass evacuation. I swallowed, but nodded. By noon, stagehands unfurled a 30-foot banner, Reclaimed Visions, ACURATION by Callista Rowan. The sight drew a knot into my throat. It unfurled in wind, each letter a flag of reclaimed territory. The street bordering the park filled with food trucks, indie craftsmen, and a local college jazz trio warming horns, an impromptu festival blossoming around our show. I'd insisted art should meet city-like neighbors at a block party, not hide behind marble columns. Press vans lined the curb. Reporters rehearsed stand-ups, scenic pond and backdrop. One recognized me, shouting, "Callista, how does it feel to curate amid threats?" I smiled tight. Feels like painting during a storm. Brush must stay steady, camera's word. At 2 p.m., Sandra arrived in an ambulance escort, doctor cleared but pale. I hugged her gently. She showed bruises, but her spirit blazed. Russo bound me at a midtown storage loft, she said. Kept ranting about investors losing billions if your name stuck. I thanked her for bravery. She pressed something into my hand. My graphite pencil I'd given Clara, found in Russo's pocket. Clara's safe, she said, but the message was clear. Anger coiled anew. Rehearsal at 3. I stepped onto stage where Triptych now stood behind transparent shielding. Portable floodlights silently rotated, mimicking sunrise color temperature we'd programmed. 2,500 Kelvin gold, climbing toward 5,500 Kelvin white. Test run bathed the linen in liquid fire and cobalt shift, making my signature flare. Applause erupted from volunteers gathered. The moment felt fragile, and then surreal as the mayor walked up, handshake firm, eyes earnest. "Artists like you prove New York's resilience," she said. Photo flashes. Singh lingered near, scanning crowd. We rehearsed the program, opening remarks, live quartet, my 10-minute talk, unveiling of the unseen pavilion, tents along the mall where student artists now set up easels. At midpoint, a call to action per standard YouTube script guidelines would broadcast on jumbotrons for online stream. My voice trembled when I tested mic. Memories of bomb flashback rattled. But when I glanced at the painting, calm settled, like pigment holding fast to canvas. 5:30 p.m. audience already filled half the seating. Families, tourists, art students clutching sketchbooks. A golden haze steeped treetops as sun began descent. Backstage, Evelyn clasped my shoulders. 40 minutes until showtime. She checked her watch, then whispered, "Midpoint reminder." I nodded. Special message to insert halfway. Singh entered, walkie glued to ear. Unknown drone registered outside no-fly zone west of Bow Bridge. Could be media, but we're tracking. My stomach clenched. Everett? Altitude? 30 meters, Singh said. Thermal camera sees additional weight under fuselage, not standard. Evelyn blanched. Bomb? Possible chemical or paint dispersal, Singh said. Team deploying counter-drone nets. I inhaled deepest since dawn. Show goes on. 6 p.m. lights dimmed. Hush rippled. The quartet struck first notes. Strings weaving dreamlike prelude. Spotlights painted stage amber. I stepped forward, heartbeat syncing with pizzicato. "Welcome," I began, voice rolling over hushed crowd, "to reclaimed visions, the moment we place truth where it belongs, in full daylight." Cheers rose. Cameras streamed to tens of thousands online. I told story of a race signature, of Triptych's rescue. I gestured to the unseen wing-flanking lawns, where artists once overshadowed now painted live. Applause swelled. 10 minutes later, quartet segued into jazz interlude. My cue, I addressed viewers again. Before we jump back in, I paused, scanning faces, cameras, the sky where a single dark speck hovered distant. This story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now, back to the story. The crowd laughed, some cheering, many pulling phones to hit buttons. I felt algorithmic winds shift in our favor. As music resumed, Singh approached side stage, whispering, "Drone intercepted, net fired, but target evaded. It's circling." I looked up. Sunset's pink veil made the drone a silhouette, inching closer. Police snipers on scaffolding aimed non-lethal disruptors. The quartet concluded. Spotlight pivoted for unveiling. Marshalling courage, I nodded to stagehand. Heavy curtains slid aside, revealing fugue and ultramarine, lit by simulated dawn. Crowd gasped, a collective intake so pure my eyes watered. Then the drone dropped. It dove in a hawk's stoop, engine whine shredding hush. Onlookers screamed, snipers loosed jammers, sparks crackled. The drone jerked, stabilized, then released payload, canisters the size of thermoses, tumbling like silver hail. Sandra shouted from wings, "Paint bombs!" Cylinders burst midair, splattering neon orange paint across Triptych shield, stage floor, first rows. The acrylic barrier took brunt, but paint oozed down, bright as molten traffic cones. Gasps morphed to panicked chatter. I grabbed mic. "Stay calm, non-toxic." My voice quavered but held. "Police neutralizing threat." The drone wobbled, nets snagging propellers. It crashed into pond beyond, sizzle of electronics. Spotlights flickered. Crew rushed with plastic sheeting, wiping shield. Orange sluiced off, revealing undamaged canvas. Cheers erupted spontaneously, defiant. But above the cheering, I heard distinct report. Silenced pistol, a wooden crack, projectile hitting truss, sparks showered, floodlight arm sagged. Evelyn screamed as a supporting cable snapped, swinging metal toward audience. Quick-thinking rigger hit emergency release, light slammed to empty row. Snipers scanned tree line, Singh barked into radio. Shooter west quadrant, police surged. Chaos teetered like domino line, but crowd largely stayed seated. Bravery or shock? I seized mic again. We do not yield, I gestured to quartet. Miraculously, they resumed. Saxophone pouring resilient melody. Applause restored unity. Backstage, adrenaline trembled my limbs. Singh reported. Shooter fled into wooded area, heading toward 72nd Street Cross Drive. Units in pursuit, helicopter overhead. I pictured Everett, news suit swapped for tactical jacket, weaving among parkgoers. Singh's radio crackled. Suspect barricaded in Loeb Boathouse kitchen. Officers mobilized. I realized Boathouse overlooked lake behind our event, line of sight. Everett cornered like a wounded fox. Singh strode off. I started after. My show, my fight. But Evelyn grabbed me. Let police handle. But something gnawed. Everett fixated on controlling narrative. Suicide standoff could become martyrdom, blaming chaos on me. I broke free, sprinting after Singh. I wove through backstage, down service path to East Drive, then north. Sirens wailed, tourists scattered. At Boathouse footpath, officers huddled behind squad cars, weapons drawn toward glass dining hall. I ducked behind cruiser. Singh spotted me, scowled. Stay back. Talk to him, I urged. He wants audience. She hesitated. Crisis negotiator still en route. Everett's muffled shouts echoed inside. Worthless without me, she ruined everything. Dishes crashed. Singh weighed options. Finally, fine, but vest. An officer strapped Kevlar over my vest. My knees shook as I approached patio door, hands raised. Inside, Everett paced near hostage busboy, silver pistol in grip. Paint spattered his jacket, likely from cylinder assembly, his eyes wild. Laird, I called through glass. Let him go, talk to me. He snarled. You think winning one painting erases me? My investors. Your investors will bail, I said. Violence destroys art markets. But you can step back. Declare you were misled by Chadwick. Cooperate. You'll salvage reputation. He laughed, brittle. Reputation built on valuations. Your name makes his pieces worthless. He jabbed gun at busboy. Collateral until my helicopter arrives. Crisis negotiator arrived outside, commandeering comms. But Everett saw SWAT forming. Panic flickered. He dragged hostage toward back door to dock. I acted on instinct. You want value? I can make Chadwick's pieces surge again. He paused, suspicious. Curator statement, I lied. Announce collaboration. Limited dual attribution. Scarcity drives price. I'll say tonight's attack was performance art commentary. Long tradition of happenings. Quote. He eyed me, greed grappling fear. Public would buy that? Market loves controversy, I said, nauseated by the words. But only if no one dies. I met hostage's eyes. Silent promise. Everett's grip loosened. Busboy sensed it. Wrenched free dove. Gun swung. Shot cracked. Shattering wine rack. Not flesh. In same heartbeat, SWAT glassbreaker deployed. Flashbang thunked. Exploded white. Everett screamed, disoriented. Officers flooded, pinning him. Outside, I sank to ground, tears and adrenaline mixing. Singh hauled Everett away in cuffs. He thrashed, spitting paint-splattered venom. This isn't over, Rowan. But his voice drowned under cheers from distant bandshell as quartet finished triumphant riff. Back at stage, dusk deepened. Floodlights glowed intact. Audience buzzed with shock and exhilaration. Evelyn hugged me. Boathouse? Contained, I managed. She brushed paint specks from my sleeve. You just redefined living art, she whispered. We decided to close with improvised encore, spotlight on the unseen artists. As they raised brushes in salute, crowd rose, clapping thunder. Triptych stood behind them, orange paint removed, my signature shining against curtain of stars. But even as triumph hummed, I sensed final reckoning awaited. Courtrooms, testimonies, legions of critics dissecting motives. And overshadowing all, the lingering echo of Everett's threat. This war might be won, but the campaign for truth, for systemic change in art world, had only just begun. The band struck last chord, confetti cannons hissed, this time loaded with biodegradable petals, not paint. Petals cascaded, catching spotlight beams like falling constellations. I stepped to mic for closing thanks when my phone buzzed, prison call notification. Display, Chadwick, Declan, my breath hitched. He had one call tonight and he used it on me. On stage before thousands, I accepted. His voice crackled through earpiece, calm yet electric. Congratulations, Callista. You burned the old gallery. But phoenixes need ashes to rise. I whispered, your ashes, maybe. He chuckled. We're all coals in the same kiln. Remember, I taught you fire. Line clicked dead. I lowered phone, pulse trip hammering. Spotlights pivoted to me. I forced smile, delivered gratitude speech. Crowd cheered. But inside, embers stirred. Declan's riddles, Everett's threats, systemic rot, deeper than two villains. As last fanfare rose, I glanced at Triptych. For the first time, I noticed a faint discrepancy in panel 3. Tiny blister under varnish, as if solvent pocketed. A conservation anomaly? Or something Declan planted long ago, waiting to bloom? A premonitory chill swept. Realization dawned. There might be more hidden beneath paint, secrets poised like time bombs. Lights faded, leaving only moonlit silhouettes. I stared at that blister, heart heavy yet resolute. Tomorrow, final part of this odyssey would peel every remaining layer. Night refused to loosen its grip on me, even after the last confetti petal settled and the bandshell emptied into murmuring starlit paths. I lingered backstage long after the crews began coiling cable, staring at that micro blister on panel 3, a single pearl of varnish so small no spectator would have noticed. Yet to me it pulsed like a beacon. I could almost hear Declan's voice again. Layer upon layer, Callista. Bury the secret so deep the painting itself keeps guard. Dawn's first gray light found me in Westbrook's conservation studio once more. The triptych recreated and returned under heavy escort, less than 4 hours after the open-air show. The museum had become fortress and infirmary and war room all at once. Rotating police details at every door, medics on standby, lawyers pacing like caged panthers. Yet within those locked laboratory walls, a hush reigned, broken only by the steady hum of HEPA filters and Evelyn's soft breathing beside me. We wore Tyvek suits, gloves and respirators, precautionary gear for solvent vapors. Under the stereo microscope, the blister magnified into a tiny glass mountain, its summit reflecting the LED ring light like a malignant star. I recalled every pigment I'd laid, every glazing pass, and knew this deformity wasn't mine. Someone, almost certainly Declan, had injected a foreign resin beneath the topcoat. Evelyn adjusted focus. If he embedded something, we need to know before attorneys accuse us of tampering, she whispered through the mask. Detective Singh stood just outside the fume hood, arms folded, a silent sentinel. She'd authorized a warrant for Everett's yacht hours earlier. Homeland Security had seized encrypted hard drives and a €4 million slush ledger. Everett now sat in federal custody. Declan had called me from jail once more at 3 a.m., a single cryptic sentence before guards cut the line. Art's last layer is always silence. Silence. Or perhaps a fuse. I warmed the blister gently with an infrared lamp. The varnish softened, edges lifting. Using a tungsten needle finer than a whisker, I pierced the dome and teased it back. A thin hiss escaped, air-trapped with deliberate care. Beneath lay a translucent capsule, scarcely bigger than a sesame seed, flattened to the linen by the previous layer. Evelyn's eyes widened. Micro SD? I lifted it with micro-tweezers, dropped it into an anti-static vial. The cavity below plunged deeper than expected, revealing a pinhole that threaded into the ground beneath the paint, an intentional channel carved with a hypodermic needle. Had Declan planned to retrieve this later, using solvent to loosen varnish, or hoped it would be destroyed over time, erasing evidence? "Let's image the file now," Singh urged. Minutes later, data loaded onto a quarantined laptop. Directory tree popped up, encrypted zip archive labeled Aurora. Password requested. We tried common keys. Declan's birthday, studio address, mentor names. Nothing. Sandra, arm and sling, entered with coffee. "He's a megalomaniac," she said. "Try self-references." I typed CHADWICKDIETY. Failure. DECLANMASTERPIECE. Failure. I stared at the blinking cursor, then recalled his stairwell words years ago. Paint like every stroke is the last air in your lungs. Air. Last air. I entered last air. Archive opened. Inside, dozens of high-resolution scans. My sketchbook pages, pigment recipes, correspondence with early collectors, documents Declan had photographed without permission. There were also PDFs of forged provenance letters, museum loan forms with falsified curator signatures, even donor emails courting Everett's firm with promises of astronomical appreciation if attribution remained singular and uncontested. At the end, a video file, Vox Confession, MP4. We exchanged glances. "Play it," Singh said. Declan appeared on screen. Date stamp 6 months ago, seated in his Asterly studio. He stared into camera, eyes glassy with drink. Voice slurred yet deliberate. "For the record, my greatest work is the illusion of authorship. Students are pens. I provide ink. History will credit me, because I'll own the narrative." He laughed, bitter. "Callista Rowan, she's the one. Her triptych is sublime. But who will ever believe a barista from Queens over the name on the wall?" He leaned closer. "If you're watching this, the illusion is fractured. Fine. Art is conflict. Let's see who bleeds more." My stomach churned. Evelyn cursed softly. Singh's jaw tightened. "This is our smoking gun," she said. But I felt no triumph, only a weary ache. Even in private, Declan reveled in theft. Yet he'd saved the recording, hidden it inside my painting. Why? Insurance? A failsafe to blackmail Everett? Or some twisted expression of admiration, gifting me the bullet to end him if I found the chamber? We archived the files. Duplicates synced to secure off-site cloud. Singh departed to prepare indictments for wire fraud, conspiracy, extortion. Charges that would eclipse the physical assaults. Legal avalanche cued. I peeled off respirator, nausea dissipating as filtered air receded. Evelyn offered water. "One more layer uncovered," she said. "But how many still remain?" I wondered aloud. Noon. Press conference schedules flickered on overhead screens. Rowan to present new evidence. My phone buzzed nonstop. Publishers, talk show producers, lecture invitations. I muted them all. Instead, I penned a social media post. Art should amplify voices, not silence them. Today we unmask another silence. I attached a still from Declan's confession, redacting only the timestamp. Within 30 minutes, #Rowan Reclaims trended worldwide. By 3 p.m., I found myself before the state grand jury testifying under oath. Prosecutors played the confession clip. Jurors whispered. Everett's lawyers requested continuance, citing digital authenticity. Digital forensics stamped each file with chain of custody. Motion denied. My testimony stretched hours, recounting every stolen critique session, each mislabeled gallery tag. Voice quaked but held. When asked what I wanted from verdict, I said, protection for emerging artists, transparency protocols, and scholarships funded by restitution. Gasps rippled across benches. Walking out of courthouse into flashbulb storm, I felt lighter, though weight of systemic change still pressed. Reporters peppered me. Will you sue for damages? Are you writing a memoir? I spoke of scholarship fund, refused talk of personal profit. Sandra, cleared by paramedics, joined me on steps. She whispered, the world sees you now. I answered, I wanted to see every unseen student. Evening descended. Back at Westbrook, we reconvened for emergency board meeting. Director projected new security protocols. Trustees approved millions for artist protections. They offered me permanent curator-at-large position. I accepted, with clause. Establish the Rowan Initiative, yearly exhibition for marginalized creators. Applause blossomed. Yet as hands shook, an intern burst in, breathless. Chadwick escaped during medical transfer. Room froze. Director's voice knifed the tension. How? Faked chest pains. Ambulance diverted to St. Luke's. Guard found sedated. He's gone. Evelyn paled. Singh, alerted by radio, cursed. APB issued. Citywide lockdown on transit hubs. Adrenaline crashed back through me. My pulse roared. Declan free. Confession out. His legacy crumbling. He had nothing left but vendetta. He'll come for the painting, Evelyn murmured. Or me, I said. He taught you fire, asterisk, his last call echoed. 9 p.m. I stood alone in atrium gallery, triptych remounted, lights low for after hours. Security roved, but I requested solitude, bait and sanctuary both. A Kevlar plate lay beneath blazer, pistol-trained guard outside door. Yet still I trembled. I traced my signature through acrylic, feeling its ridges like braille of vindication. Not even you can erase me now, I whispered. Footsteps, soft, deliberate, behind me. I turned. Declan stepped from shadowed doorway, hospital scrubs under museum coat, IV tape still at crook of elbow. In one hand, a mason's hammer. In the other, spray canister emblazoned with biohazard symbol. Hello, Callista? Voice ragged, eyes fevered. Came to see the phoenix in her nest. Security should have intercepted, but he must have slipped through service shafts, badges forged. Panic spiked, but I kept stance. It's over, Declan. Your confession's public. He laughed, half-sob. Public loves tragedy. Tonight we give them spectacle. He raised canister. Hydrofluoric mist. Eats glass, paint, flesh. Leaves only ghosts. Will fuse into art eternal. Heart slammed. I edged between him and triptych. You destroy that, you destroy any chance of redemption. Redemption? He coughed wetly. I want oblivion. Shared. He stepped closer. My guard burst in, weapon drawn. Declan swung hammer. Guard dodged but slid on polished floor, gun skidding. Declan kicked it away. He advanced on me. Behind, guard pressed alarm button. Klaxon wailed, red strobes flaring. Remember final critique? Declan hissed. I told you pain births brilliance. Let's bleed brilliance. He depressed canister trigger. Spray hissed. I grabbed steel pedestal, swung it into his wrist. Canister flew, clanging across marble, hissing gas. Declan screamed in rage, lunged. We grappled. Hammer grazed my shoulder. Pain spiking, but adrenaline held. Evelyn and Singh charged through second door with 2 officers. Drop it, Singh yelled. Declan spun, bringing hammer overhead toward acrylic case. I hooked his arm, redirecting arc. Hammer struck floor, spark shower. Officers tackled him, handcuffing as he thrashed. HF canister still hissed. Singh yelled, Evac! Officers shoved us toward exit, ceiling gallery. Fire suppression flooded area with neutralizing foam within seconds. Outside corridor, medics treated my shoulder. Fracture hairline but stable. Declan, restrained, spat foam, crying incoherently. Art is mine, mine! He was sedated, taken into custody again, this time under maximum security. I slumped against cool wall tile, tremors subsiding. Evelyn clutched my uninjured arm. It's finished, she whispered. Is it? I wondered, but nodded anyway. 48 hours later, courtroom packed. Declan wheeled in, wrists bound, face gaunt. Jury foreman read unanimous verdict. Guilty on charges of fraud, attempted murder, vandalism, terrorism. Sentenced to consecutive life terms without parole, plus restitution fund for emerging artists. The Rowan Initiative, enshrined in judgment. Everett pleaded guilty, cooperation exchange, fortune seized to endow scholarships. Russo accepted plea, testified against financiers. 3 months later, Westbrook reopened renovated South Wing, the Unseen Galleries, permanent. Opening gala overflowed with donors wearing pins shaped like rising brushstrokes, initiative emblem. Sandra curated first rotation. Clara's portrait series hung near the entrance. I delivered keynote, stitches long removed, shoulder healed. Cameras flashed, not in exploitation but celebration. Mom, teary-eyed, stood front row clutching program. After speech, she hugged me, whispered, "Your name glows brighter than chandeliers." I smiled, glancing at triptych crowning atrium. My triptych, now bulletproof shield upgraded, blister cavity restored. Under spotlight, signature shown. Evelyn sidled up. Speechless moment? For once, I laughed softly. We toasted sparkling cider. Later I wandered beyond crowd into twilight of sculpture garden, city skyline gleaming. Detective Singh approached in plain clothes, paperwork in hand. "Thought you'd want closure," she said, handing me envelope. Inside, printed still from prison security footage. Declan in orange jumpsuit, painting with improvised pigments on cell wall. A rough fugue of swirling blue, signed with both our initials intertwined. I stared, emotions conflicting. Singh added, "He enrolls in inmate art therapy. No parole, but maybe acceptance." I folded photo gently, slid into pocket. Some stories end, not with erasure, but with echo. Back in atrium, a hush settled as lights dimmed for closing remarks. I stepped to podium one last time. Cameras streamed, live viewership in the hundreds of thousands. I spoke of resilience, of layers peeled back to reveal truth, of community forged in crisis. Art, I concluded, is not a single name or hand. It is the chorus rising when silence breaks. Tonight, let every brushstroke, past, present, future, carry honest credit. I gestured to donation kiosks. Support the Rowan Initiative. Help voices emerge. Audience stood, applause thunderous like surf. As spotlights brightened, I ended with a smile into camera.